Okay, so we have San Martino creation on the second tab. The first steps on, according to the Fed core rules, is to establish the current issues that our setting are suffering from, and incoming issues that are not issues at the beginning of the game, but they seem to be looming closer. So, considering what we talked, how would you put such things as issues?
Well, I think probably like this is the issue of like the setting, right? I think probably like some pretty like generic things like the whole city being reliant on like a season-based tourist economy, which basically makes like a very big part of of like the population having only jobs half the year. And also making like a lot of places where to live that is nice inaccessible, because which is also empty in the winter.
I like that idea. I also like the idea of expanding that a little bit farther, because in a lot of places, in theory, in a lot of places like that, you're supposed to be able to make enough money during the tourist season to live the rest of the year. Ludo, you see where I'm going with this already. Nope, you're making minimum wage at this stuff. So even in the off season, when the tourists aren't around, it's not like you made enough to pay rent and keep food. You're still living in economic precarity and so forth. One question that I would have is, how much of the property in San Martino is owned by a rentier class? Where, how many people in San Martino own the flat or the building or the house that they live in?
Nobody.
Okay, so it's all owned by people who are renting it to them.
Yeah, I will say really mostly nobody. I mean, again, if we're gonna go with the touchdowns, nobody owns their home in Monaco. I mean, even the majority of people cannot even afford to rent in Monaco. Definitely not a Drotovnik. Everyone lives in villages like 2 or 3 hours away, and San Marino the same. Unless your family 5 generations ago got a home, you don't own the house where you are. So, and the thing is, most of it is not even for renting. That's the worst part. Most of it is empty, but because people with wealth, they buy that for vacations, or they buy one house and they buy the next 10 houses around it to assure that it does not lose values. Most of it is not even rented back. It's even worse. It's purely speculative.
So it's kind of like LA, where service workers have to spend 3 hours on the bus each way to get to work. So it's like 6 hours on the bus, 8 to 10 hours at the job, and then by the time they get home, they're too exhausted to do literally anything.
Yeah, and in this case, you might be commuting to another country. Because again, living on this micronation for the wealthy is too poor. It's like the people on Monaco, they commute almost every single day from France.
Seems about right.
So what are the let's go let's put let's re, let's repeat the issues and try to make those in more aspect like.
What does that mean, aspect like?
Well, because fate assumes that any information about the game can be written down as an aspect. So how we make it short and punchy, something that you could probably bring up during the game.
And then if I remember right, you can act on the aspects or call on the aspects.
Yeah,
and
that is the
invoke.
idea. Yeah. I think the first issue was exactly that there is a seasonal industry. So, so you have this perpetual mentality of feast and famine. You gonna do bad when it's not tourist season, no matter what. Uh, so when you make money during the tourist season, well, better spend it because you're not gonna have it anyway. So how do we word that?
I think you just word it as, seasonal employment or season, tourist season or something like that. Because in terms of an aspect, you can act on that in a couple of different ways. Like, if it's tourist season and you're trying to kill a monster, maybe you have to be a little more careful about how you're planning it to keep it a little more under the radar. Whereas if it's not tourist season, I mean, sure, you don't want to go around firing rocket launchers into buildings willy-nilly, but you don't have to be quite as concerned because there's not hardly anybody around, and the people who are around are basically just gonna be like going, "Hey, kill that vampire, thanks. You're doing us a solid." So you might be able to get more support during the tourist off season from locals and class solidarity than you can during tourist season.
I don't know. I also think perhaps like that's a good point, but I also think probably like in the winter season when nobody actually has any work, it might also be quite a lot of competition about those like pretty lousy jobs.
Yeah, probably a lot of hunters that only work during the winter seasons,
Yeah.
Also, if there are less people moving around the city, it also raises suspicion.
So it sounds like that we could describe that or turn it into an aspect of fierce competition.
Yeah, because that also matches with the fact, that matches very well with the seasonal jobs because, if someone takes your job, they are, they are screwing you over because you don't have a job now and you probably suffer in winter. And if someone rents your place, now you're going to spend 6 hours commuting, which is 6 hours that you could be spending gaining money during the tourist season.
Yeah, it could be something like it's a rat race or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so eternal rat race.
I don't know who said that. It might have been you even. Like I heard someone say, like even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat.
Yeah. Seasonal hard rat race. Looks so good. Sounds good. Okay. How about the other issue?
I'm thinking maybe like I'm thinking also something about like the it's a bit in the same way, but I'm thinking a bit like there is probably still like a local upper class that like keeps like the kind of populace down because they earn money on it, but also is completely, I don't know, there's like this kind of thing where there's always someone who profits, but it's not really that much of a profit, but because it's a profit they still like keep their people down in a way, because the people on top here is obviously like the people, the tourists, right?
Well, and the financial sector.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a thought. Just going to toss it out there. What if there isn't just one tourist season in San Martino for iHunt? What if there's two? There's the season when the weather's nice and the climate's balmy. And then when the weather starts turning bad and all the wealthy tourists go away, it turns into a tourist season for the monsters. And the wealthy literally bring them in to feed on the lower class.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of the monsters are actually the rich.
So they wouldn't have to bring people in to do that.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, but you bring a good point is, on Europe, in Europe, unless, we are talking about Spain and Portugal and Greece, tourism is not very seasonal. There are periods, but it's not locked to the seasons, which makes it even worse. Because you have you have a few weeks now, then that for months, then another few weeks. So it makes it even worse because then you cannot arrange renting in advance or not. So it's always this on, off, on, off, on, off.
Yeah, unless it's a beach town, that's true. Like if it's a historical site or something like that, that's definitely something that, like an old city or something. Like San Marino, I guess.
Yeah, and even that has seasons.
Yeah, I mean it does, but it's not like a complete dead stop.
No. That's the thing. There's always, it's unlike, there are times in which really nobody is there and the city is empty.
So what I was thinking on is like it's some related to the democracy not working because the people in power benefit from, I guess, the status quo.
I will argue the democracy probably works. The question is who votes. Because again, if most people don't live here, does most of the workers even have residency? Can they even vote?
No, that's true.
I think that can actually be another issue that also makes it problematic to get class solidarity, is that who even is from San Martino? I mean, everyone has to, most of the, who really lives here most of the year? Who can afford that?
Yeah.
So I guess that can actually be the issue. Nobody's really from San Martino. Everyone is always in passing, be a tourist, be some wealthy family that does not live there because it's too gauche now, or the most common, the workers that have to spend at least most of the year somewhere else. That can be what is really. Okay, then we can move to incoming issues. These are things that are looming in the future. Any ideas?
So what kind of monsters are we talking about? And is there any kind of seasonality to these monsters?
Really, any range of monsters. And I really don't think there is seasonality. Well, I guess vampires are probably the most seasoned because they both exist in large numbers and they need a lot of population to feed and mingle. So vampires are probably the most seasonal of them.
Michael, if you have an idea, I'm drawing blanks here.
Incoming issues. I guess I guess maybe there's like this thing where the whole place is like I think the income issue could be like there's this kind of authenticity trend that leaves places like this with the tourism infrastructure being like less popular, which means that tourism is gonna get lower and even less money is gonna be around. Like the whole economy is gonna crash. Like something, like authenticity tourism.
Oh, I think I know how to make it spicy. It's gonna crash and it's gonna be authentic.
Yeah. Oh boy.
This may be dipping too much into current events. But what if there was some kind of pathogen infecting the population and causing scarcity for blood amongst the vampires?
Well, maybe. No, it's funny that you say that because so I was checking on Fate Condensed because it's the newest version of Fate and it is really an improvement overall. It's probably the best version of Fate, to be honest. And that comes from Fate Cthulhu. And I was, after reading the booklet, I went to read the Fate Cthulhu. And so it comes with 5 apocalyptic scenarios, each related to a great elder god. 2 of them start with massive pandemics in 2020. I was like, oh my God.
Jesus.
Yes. I mean, the book released like, what, 2 months ago?
That is not what you want for your launch campaign. Want to play real life?
Yeah, too real. I don't know. I think the threat of... I will argue that is included there because honestly, this is not a viral problem. This is not a scientific problem. This is a economy problem because, this is only a pandemic because of this bullshit. This is only a threat because austerity put every single social security measure on the red, even a normal condition. So of course, and again, humans have existed alongside highly mutating viruses before there were cities, before there was agriculture. If your advanced modern system of organization of production cannot account for that as a factor, it's as stupid as not accounting that the sun rises and sets every day. I think it's primarily a failure of the economy, and I think that's going to be included on the crash incoming.
Okay, so is there? Are we missing something here? Is it? Do we need another incoming issue?
No, we don't need it. It's just we are just brainstorming if we add another one or not.
I can't come up with anything else. At least I think on the fly. Not that I can think of.
I mean, it's incoming. We can always add this in game. So The next thing that you do is that you create places and faces. So this is pretty pretty straightforward. So we think about locations, organizations, or issues like the ones we described, and we write them down, and we give it a face, which is basically it's a character that represents that issue. A good comparison that I can take is on Microscope when you are playing on the Explorer mode, in which you have to give an anchor to every event. So it's a character through which those aspects of the game are known. So, for example, if we have the seasonal rat race, we might have a worker character or some kind of tech bro or whatever, a character that represents that. If we have the robot is really from San Marino, we can have an immigrant, one of the old families that are actually from San Martino for contrast, one of these tourists, one of these tourist companies. If we create a place, like say an historical center, a neighborhood, then we also create a face to that place, etc. So this is the part when you actually start to give color to the setting, things that you will actually interact to during scenes of the game.
So come up with characters for the issues.
Characters for the issues or places and organizations, and then characters for those. Let me just link the page on Fate Color about that.
Is there? Yeah, go ahead.
No, please.
Is this place like landlocked?
This is one of those things that I was like, I mean, I think worst case, I think, it's an old European city and there's at least a major river. So.
So since you've said that it's kind of wherever it needs to be, maybe it's close enough that you can see the ocean, but it's, a principality, so it doesn't have direct ocean access, maybe?
I mean, there are a few principalities with direct ocean access, but we can make it, something like Barcelona. It's not technically the Mediterranean. It's this massive bay. Or the Tagus rivers, in which the sea kind of gets like 30 kilometers inside the river.
I mean, I kind of like the idea of a city that's in a mountainous area but still has beach access, even though based on what I saw of Europe, that's kind of impossible.
No, it's not.
It's not?
It's super common. You are basically describing the Bay of Naples and most of Sicily.
Okay. So, I'm thinking like cliffside residences, like multi-stories that have these amazing views. Maybe there's some kind of small dock less for shipping and transport and more for yachts and things like that. Does that sound like?
I think you are already creating a location. I think that can be a very nice location, kind of, this big marina, or, or and this cliffside rich neighborhood or something like that. I think you can create that as a place.
Well, and the other part of it is there'd be workers there that would be overseen by some kind of harbor master. So that gives us an NPC as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, some kind of harbor master, city official, or permanent residence, or some kind of guide. I think these kinds of, any of these could be a good face for that place.
The only question is it someone who feels class solidarity with the people on the docks or somebody who is a bootlicking toady?
Well, let's think in terms of a fudge dice. What do you say they showing up is a minus, a plus, or a neutral?
What do you think, Mikkel?
Harbor Master or something like that. What that was the title?
Something like that.
Minus probably.
Overseer, management class. Fair enough.
I guess there is no longshoremen's union in San Martino.
No, they probably like. There's no. Wouldn't say so.
Unions still exist? I thought those were all smashed by this point.
That's the problem. There exist a lot of false conscious unions, corporate unions, coordinator class unions.
Might as well be unions run by HR.
Exactly. Corporate unions.
Yeah, I that's a thing. Like I really, when we were doing like the brainstorming for this, I was in Rimini, where my partner's from, and there was like these zones where there was like old like holiday colonies from the like I don't know 50s, 60s, something like that probably. And I really like that aesthetic. So I think I want to have like something like that. And they're abandoned, all of them, of course, beachfront.
All those company towns.
Yeah. There was like these
modern architecture before it was everywhere, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they're all like ghost houses now. Or vampire houses. I don't know. Who knows? But I think probably, I don't know. I think it's like a bit obscure who owns them. But there's definitely always someone showing up if someone tries to like crash there or something like that.
Which I think can be the role of the harbor master,
Mm-hmm.
Because, they are the petit bourgeoisie of the place. But, they don't want you to going around ruining their little privilege by messing their boss's stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's a bit of like this kind of, because there's no good property in San Martino, but this is really good property, but it's just standing there. Nobody uses it.
But that's the point, That's how you know that it's good property.
Yeah.
Because even if they are not using it, they are not selling either.
It's true. We're gonna call I guess we can call it like the colony zone or something like that. Am I writing that down? I can't actually. I'm on view only.
Let me fix that.
No, the link you sent in the chat was fine. Yeah, I just went into the character keeper and then it was cool. Nice. So should I write it down?
Yeah. So basically, yeah. Harbor master of the, I don't know which name to give this harbor colony.
I think it's just called the colony zone. Like literally, I am in this place. There's the whole beachfront for like along. There's not just one building. It's like buildings upon buildings where the big companies used to send the kids for like health purposes back in the day. And then like there's the train unions or whatever, holiday colony, and then there's like another holiday colony next by, and there's like all the front for like a little bit there is just colonies, and it's all abandoned. Should I put the name of the zone or the person?
Both. But because we still don't have the name of the person, just put Arbor Master off.
Cool.
Arbor Master of what? What you're gonna call it? That
Of like, is that something else than the? Yeah, I think. Old Marina.
I mean, it would probably have the name of the company that originally built it, right? So I think probably it remained. And we still have faded corporate logos.
Yeah, and I don't even think like this is not really like it's not even it wasn't really even corporate back then. Like it was the state railroad or whatever. But I guess I mean that the state railroad doesn't exist anymore because it's privatized, right? So
yeah, maybe on this case it could have been, an old shipwriters company or trade union.
Trade union, sure. I think like, so I think I kind of like that. Like it used to be like maybe it's even still like it was in the like railroad companies hands until they privatized it. And nobody knows who owns it, but someone bought the whole railroad company, right? Some rich person from like outside the country or whatever, like a Russian or something like that. Or foreigner at least, or like hedge fund, I guess.
Okay. I like what you're doing with it. What if it's kind of a nowhere zone because there are disputes between a hedge fund claiming ownership and a couple of people who live outside San Martino claiming ownership?
Yeah,
So
that's probably why it's not just nightclubs and beach houses. Probably because of that.
Yeah, it's a bunch of lawyers fighting over it and trying to show through paperwork that they have the legitimate claim on the land. And so, nobody can really do anything with it because none of them will budge. They're all fighting over it. They're not, selling parts of it or creating co-development agreements or anything like that. They all want it. Does that sound like something that would fit with what your idea was?
Yeah, that's cool.
I think that can be an aspect to give the harbor master, epicenter of legal disputes.
Yeah, legal wrangling, legal dispute, litigation, something like that. And then with names in this, Ludo, are you thinking like a more European vibe where names could be German or Swedish or Finnish or Spanish or Portuguese or Italian? Or do you kind of want to lean toward emphasizing one country's kind of the language of one country and the names that are common in that country over another?
I think it would be fun if we go for, old time stuff. Maybe go more on Italian or Balkan languages. But I think for modern stuff, I think we should go deep into nobody's really from San Martino, and really any name can be there.
Okay. So here's another question. Are there any media outlets in San Martino? TV
Do you
stations,
want to make a
newspapers?
media outlet? This sounds like something you want to create.
Well, I don't know about. Okay. So the kind of view I have of San Martino is that the ruling class wants to keep it looking charming, like something out of history. So they don't necessarily want cell phone antennas. They're visible. They don't want TV antennas or whatnot. But the ruling class probably would like to see themselves as the kind of people who would sit down at a cafe and read the newspaper, because, well, that just seems. Doesn't that seem like a delightful way to spend the morning, sitting at a cafe, having a pastry, sipping your espresso, reading the financial section in the local paper?
Yeah, I can see the case for a strong financial backbone there, supported by media, or going on the other angle and going, to the poser side of patronage of the arts. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a gallery and a kind of artistic magazine that sets the trends or something like that.
Well, of course there'd be a gallery. I mean, how else are they going to get stuff to cover their walls with that they never look at and just bought as an investment? As far as the newspaper goes, though, I think it's a situation where there is an editor who understands that to keep people buying the paper, there has to be financial coverage, there has to be artistic coverage. But the editor, like a lot of journalists, has class consciousness and tries to slip in whatever they can, whenever they can, to kind of clue people into things that are going on that maybe they should be paying attention to.
How do you even make, as working class, you get to editor of something that only publishes bourgeois fuck shit like that? I'm curious now.
You'd be surprised. Remember, I worked in journalism.
Yeah.
I actually became an editor, and it still staggers me that happened. It's like,
yeah, but that sounds very miserable.
Well, it was one of those things, like I did, I had to cover stuff that was considered newsworthy, and I often butted heads with the editor-in-chief about what was considered newsworthy, until I pointed out that the reason that I could get an interview with, for example, The Offspring, now when they've sold like 20 million records or whatever, is because I did an interview with them when the editor had no fucking clue who they were. So there was already a pre-existing relationship where we had kind of supported them on the come up, and now, holy shit, how are we getting these stories with this band? And it's like, well, it's because I sat on the curb with the guitarist and talked a bunch of shit and drank with him one day. So I haven't met a lot of conservative editors in journalism. And usually speaking, as an editor, you work your way up. And the way that you do that is you write stories, you develop sources, you get a finger on the pulse of what's going on, and then those sources give you better stories, and eventually you kind of get promoted up the ladder because you're a little bit more valuable. So that is actually, I mean, that there's strong class consciousness that can come out of it.
Yeah, I can see a lot of modern Teen Vogue energy. They're supposed to pander to this, to this socialite tourism high life, to these galleries, to the big investments.
The publisher would be pushing that. It's like, do the stuff that brings in the money, and the editor's like, okay, sure, I got that. And then, with the news section, there's puff pieces and things like that, like personality profiles and whatnot. But every so often, the editor can have a writer do a story about something that actually matters. Whether that's sewage contamination or something like that, or, oh, hey, this house, this barracks for people who clean up a hotel was just slaughtered by God only knows what type thing.
So you want to create the magazine and the editor?
Yeah, magazine, newspaper, something like that. The editor. Yeah. I think it'd be interesting. I think the editor should be a woman. And I think it would be interesting if they had long-standing family ties to San Martino. Like maybe their family was originally in the class of people who owned property, but over a couple of generations were pushed out of that. So she remembers how she's heard the stories of how it once was, and now sees the difference in how it is, which gives her an even stronger motivation to kind of slip things in.
Yeah, and I can see that also gives a conflict, because only partially it's class consciousness. There's probably a bit of nationalism and noblesse oblige mixed in that. So it's like she's not always 100% on the worker side. So there's enough conflict there to make interest.
Yeah, and it's I like that. It's messy. Messy's good.
I can already think of an aspect, red old blood,
Yeah.
That implies both the old blood of the aristocracy and also the red views.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see what else.
Coded messages in the classified section. Like people, there's a code among the working class, and you can place ads, classified ads with it.
In my experience, there's not need for much too much code. You can just say a lot of things, and people just don't notice.
Well, because who looks at the classifieds anymore?
Yeah, they open the magazine, they look at the big titles, they look at the pretty photos, they look at the ads, and who really reads the columns, honestly?
There's got to be a hospital in this town, doesn't there?
Ooh. Good question.
I mean, there's got to be some kind of medical care for the wealthy, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking that, there's probably some old terms or, some old Austrian, Hungarian style grand hotel that, it's a mix between hotel and hospital.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably something like that.
Ooh, so it's like one of those luxury hotels,
Yeah,
or
you know,
not luxury
like those
hotels, but like a luxury
sanatoriums.
hospital.
You know,
Yeah.
like those sanatoriums. I can see a sanatorium in the mountains of San Martino.
So you can go there when you're stressed out, you know, air quotes around stressed out. They perform like elective plastic surgery, that sort of thing. There's some kind of emergency, there's a helicopter on the roof because they can afford it, and they can fly them to some place that's got a critical care unit. I bet it wouldn't really have an emergency department for anybody who needed it but couldn't afford it.
Yeah, I think most of the people, they probably have small street clinics for small stuff.
Yeah.
You know, not a lot of specialists. Anything more specialized, you're probably gonna have to leave the country.
It's almost like street medics.
Yeah, kinda. Street medics, or you know, people that have a small corner or a business and do something like that. You know, more like barber surgeons of old.
Yep. Okay. So like maybe a pharmacist who knows how to stitch somebody up or something.
Yeah. Or you know, some butcher that actually to to medical school, but could not afford to pay until the end. But they still took 2 or 3 years of knowledge with them.
Okay. I just going to toss this out there. What if the doctor that most of the working class in San Martino actually goes to see for issues is actually the town veterinarian?
The question that I ask back is, which interesting location are they a vet on?
Rich people love horses and polo, right?
Yeah, but you know, if we have mountain and coast, we don't have exactly the best environment for golf courses and horse
Right.
riding.
Maybe it's like the like a horse touring company or something like that, horseback touring.
Or they might have a small clinic just to, you know, treat the purebred dogs and show dogs that the wealthy bring in. I mean, so here's how it, and this is admittedly from my perspective in the US. Medical school is the fallback for people who can't get into vet school, as odd as that may sound. Because there's not that many there's not that many schools for veterinary medicine. So literally, if you can't get into vet school, you go to med school. And vets know how to stitch things up. You know, and I think it'd be interesting just to make it really blatant that the working class has to go see a doctor who treats animals.
Yeah, I kind of.
Or is that too much?
To build on that, I think it would be cool if it's like the person who does that work is actually a doctor. It's just that they are not like prestigious enough to get a job at that luxury resort thing. Like probably like some kind of local who like actually got out and maybe was on the ladder of social mobility, and then no, the only job you can get here is being a vet.
Yeah, someone that you know that was told on the lie of class mobility, and they were a good pro, and they went back and they studied hard and they did their homework and they got that, and at the end, I'm sorry, we kind of went doctors with more pedigree for this, but you know, we have had problems getting a vet. Maybe that position can open for you.
That's messy. I like it. I like messy.
But I'm still thinking about the location from which they are the face. Because I can see the Harbor Master, I can see Porto Ferrovia being a place, I can see scenes being set in. A bit harder, but I can see scenes being set in on the newspaper, more likely scenes that are related to the newspapers. I'm thinking which location you would like to have an adventure or a hunt or just meet people that would be tied to having a vet.
So what if they're more of a black market doctor? Like once they realized they couldn't make it on that ladder, they opened a bar because people always drink. And that was the only thing they could think of to do that would even give them a shot to pay back their student loans.
Well, then we can even drop the vet act, you know. They just
They're a bartender who like went to med school and can stitch
Yeah.
people up and maybe has a back room.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to make them a bartender vet doctor.
I mean, you have to have several jobs in this economy.
That's true.
I mean, maybe they're a vet for the rich and they own a bar and they stitch up the poor. And even doctors are subject to the economic precarity in the city.
Yeah, I can see him. The only way that he can afford to get the bar, because again, propriety is hell on San Martino, is during the tourist season. He's often on call vet for the yacht of the raid.
The concierge vet.
Yeah.
Like you pay for that service, and this is the person who shows up 24/7 because Fifi like coughed up a hairball or something.
Exactly. But most of the time, he's just a bartender that illegally might perform some medicine on the back room.
That works. I know that's kind of fun, actually. Like, especially if they're getting called in for like really embarrassing or like literally if a cat puked up a hairball and the people who have the cat just called this vet to come clean up the hairball at 3 a.m. because they're on call and they're the concierge vet. So not even stuff that they need to be called in for. It's just like this kind of whatever, you take care of it. This is related to the cat or the dog or whatever. I pay you for this stuff. So yes, you can get out of bed at 3 a.m. and you can come clean up this hairball on the deck of my yacht, and then you can go back to wherever. So like even they don't get respect, maybe? Like they're treated like they might as well just be bagging groceries or like filling up the yacht with gas or something.
Yeah, I don't think they are paid respect, but they are probably, being treated, they are useful to capital on that moment. So while the cat is throwing the hairball, they are well pampered. But the moment the cat is okay, they are discreetly show the back door and nobody mentions they were there.
Yeah.
We still need a name. I was thinking like something like is this I think maybe this is I was thinking like something like Tony's, like something that is not really is an like a misrepresentation of the culture that they're in a little bit. Like it's a tourist who made a name based on their idea of how the thing is here.
I'd also like to see a more gender neutral name and maybe more androgynous presentation. So
I mean, cannot get more gender neutral than Alexis.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my default thinking for a Mediterranean gender neutral name.
Right.
Sure.
So we know who stitches you. We know who probably gonna be putting some stitches on you, and you know who's probably gonna be covering the stitching. What else? I think our vet, bartender slash doctor fits well with the seasonal rat race.
Did we make the hotel?
If we make the hotel, who do we use as a face?
And how much would we really be doing at the hotel? I mean, how much access would we have to it?
I mean, very likely that a lot of clients and monsters might be there.
A lot of monsters anyway, but clients?
I mean, some of the clients are the rich. Again, they are the ones that can afford to pay people. Unfortunately.
I think maybe this is someone who works there who's not really in management, like there's a receptionist or something like that.
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
How about a receptionist of the night shift that is the top rated hunter in the city?
The receptionist is the top rated hunter in the city.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, there's also this angle, you can go there for a kind of mentor role, but at the same time, they kind of claim that as their territory, and they might also always want some cut. That's why they are the top rated, more because of they have access than they actually hunt.
Yeah, that's cool. Gatekeeper.
Get off my chest, please. Cats. I tell you. Just walked right on my chest, got in my face, and it's like, I can't even see the screen. Stop.
That sounds like a cat. Oh, is there any other?
You're not wrong. I mean, honestly, Mikkel, I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I want to hear your ideas, because it's like I'm just like, maybe there's a dock, maybe there's a hospital, maybe there's this, maybe there's that.
Oh, don't worry about it. I don't feel that way. I feel like I've contributed quite a bit with the colony zone and
Yeah.
I think what place are we missing from this place? I think maybe there must be some kind of like historical building or something like that. Maybe maybe it's like a fortress or something like that, or a duomo. Like what kind of oh yeah, I think I also really liked actually that one idea that you had when we did the initial brainstorming about it, like this old monastery.
Yeah. Let me check the post.
And I think that's it's still in like the a property of the church, but it's definitely like it serves. It's been a long time since it served any spiritual function. It's just like a tourist attraction. Probably it's not even really accessible to locals. You have to. It's an entrance fee. Yeah. Of oppressors past and new. Sounds like aspect right there. Oh yeah. That's even. Let's just go with it. I like that well as well. That there's like this. There's this. It's like pretty trendy corporate retreat. Like really a new kind of, even like almost new agey kind of team building.
To
Crust
get
falls and
yeah, I actually good comparison. So do you remember Good Omens?
Mm-hmm.
Do you
book or
remember
show.
that part with the paintball corporate show at the old satanic monastery? It is now a corporate retreat. I think that's probably the vibe there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's I'm imagining like there's like this kind of you go through like this kind of team building exercises with the really like corny. This is now you're supposed to do like this kind of confession thing or whatever, and this is now you have to sit in this thing that used to be a torture instrument or whatever. Like there's like this I don't know, really stupid stuff. Like really kind of completely deleting like the historical meaning of the things that you're doing.
And who would be the face of this place?
I think so it needs to be a person, right? So I think like maybe some kind of like groundskeeper or something like that. It's probably like still the only like I'm imagining a man here, perhaps at least like man looking like monk, like the only monk who lives on the premises.
So also kind of an attraction themselves.
Yeah. But like an actual actual monk. I think yeah, his name is Andrea. was this the place? Oh. Cool.
Is there any kind of middle class entertainment, for those class traitors that, a vacation here is like their just rewards?
What if there's some kind of ornate pre-war theater dating back to, say, the 1800s that's been fully restored? And it's not necessarily an opera house, but you can, opera performances can be put on there, plays can be put on there.
Do they do concerts?
Maybe like chamber concerts, comedians. It could be, when you have a hall like that, there's a lot you can do with it.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice place.
And it makes the people who are just a hair above the economic precarity, they can handle that $400 emergency bill out of nowhere, and they go there because it makes them feel fancy, like they're kind of living it up. Like, we've made it. We've this is our dream. Like, look at us. We're able to relax and enjoy these things.
I like that. I think maybe also the reason it's so like recently renovated is that it was bombed during the war, and it's like taken all this time to renovate it. Like literally like 60 years.
Like the San Martino Historical Society was overseeing it and trying to restore it to what it used to be, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and like a combination of that maybe, and like the continuous stop of like funding from political sources who decided to prioritize other things.
Sounds pretty real.
It kind of sounded very much like a real thing I know about, so I just.
We really don't think much of humanity, do we?
I mean, this is not the game if you want to increase the.
I mean, no. Actually, I think a lot of humanity. I don't think a lot of capitalism. Because I can see here a lot of good intentions. They've probably been spending 50 years trying to renovate that, and being stopped. And only when when there was interest for capital, and they they got someone that had no problems getting a sponsorship.
Yeah.
It actually got renovated, and they probably did a rush job. A lot of things that are not the accurate materials, a lot of things that only seem to be wood or filigree. It's actually sheep. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. That's a really nice touch. Like they literally plastered over things instead of like carving it from wood, and just like kind of sanded the plaster down and whatnot, and then painted over all of it.
As it's probably not up to safety standards. Like certain projects that have recently have catastrophic events related to them being petrified rather than, safe?
I think it'd be kind of interesting if, like, the boxes maybe aren't fully architecturally supported, or at least not up to code. Maybe the electrical systems, the wiring wasn't necessarily done entirely correctly.
Yeah, because it's more important that no wiring is visible than it's actually done proper.
Yeah. So, there might be a box collapse, and the boxes would be filled with the middle class people who feel like they're really doing well, because that's going to be an expensive seat right there. Problems with the plumbing in the bathrooms. Like every once in a while, I don't know, maybe the bidet or the toilets go a little bit haywire and splash and just spray water at people.
Yeah, but that's why your characters are there, to deal with that.
Just nothing necessarily that would make people stop going, just like a lot of things that are annoying and could be dangerous, but nobody's died yet.
Well, nobody important, at least.
I'm really starting to like this town because of how much I dislike it.
Yeah, it kind of needs something that it's, worth saving in this place. I'm still trying to find out what.
Would there be any schools in San Martino? Like
probably
for
yes.
Children?
Yes.
Would there be any public parks, or would those all be privatized?
There probably has to be at least one or two. Come on.
Well, and this is
just because because it looks nice when they make the videos for tourist promotion.
But listen, I literally live. There are two parks. One a block north, one a block south. The one north is a residents-only park that is literally fenced off. The one south is attached to an elementary school. So, and a lot of it, honestly, is basically elementary school territory. There's like tennis courts there where people go to play tennis after school's out and whatnot. So it's public in the sense that after school's out, you can use it. But up to that point, it's basically school stuff. So it's dual purpose. I remember when I moved back here and I started finding out that there's private parks.
Yeah, private park is an oxymoron.
And yet,
well, it's still an oxymoron.
Like there is literally a park here in town that is owned by a corporation and only open to people who work there, and you can get visitors passes for people to bring them in, but otherwise that's it, they're excluded.
Yeah, but again, that's not a park. That's not the definition of a park.
And yet
here, yeah, but it's calling a goose attack.
Yeah. Gross.
But I think even just if only because of how old it is, I think there's probably a lot of redundancy. I think, considering what we are going for, there are two things that are the most likely parks.
Okay.
If there is an old university, or if there was a palace of one of the old nobility families or the church. Because on old towns, most of the public parks, they are basically old states that have been opened to the public after the entire family was wiped out.
I like the university idea.
Yeah.
So what is the University of San Martino known for?
Ooh.
I think it was the first university of its like region. It's like old and proud.
But because we're talking about a relatively small landmass, it's not going to have room for extensive physics labs or things like that. So I think it's probably more of a liberal arts college.
Yeah, it's cool. I like that.
Mm. So humanities.
Yeah.
So that does not bode much for the university. Paradoxically, this probably means that the university is one of the most working places, say, in that city.
Well, and I think it'd be interesting if one of the things that it was really known for was its art programs, both art history and fine art programs. Because, there's going to be galleries in San Martino. So it's almost like a feeder system to put stuff in the galleries that rich people can buy and speculate on and hoard to see if it actually appreciates in value.
Yeah, I definitely I think it's maybe started the other way around. The reason there are so many galleries here is because the rich history of the art part of this university. But definitely that's probably how it's turned out in the end.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's I love that.
Yeah, and that's probably also gonna fit on the seasonal rat race, because everyone it's pretty much the only way a lot of people can kind of make it. It's like you get one or two artists that are gallery worthy for each class, and the rest goes back to serving tables. And yeah, it has this. It's the place where class conscious and solidarity is destroyed from the young minds of San Martino. It's after they are put against each other to compete for the scraps of the galleries.
Yeah, for sure. I just watched this YouTube video from on philosophy tube about just this subject. It's fun how that turned out up in this game as well.
I got to manage cats for a couple of seconds. I'll be back in a few.
And who will be the face of the university park?
I was thinking maybe there's this older person who's been selling art there forever, on the street, the kind of person who lays out their pieces on the ground, selling it. Probably just it. They're definitely talented enough to be in the gallery. It's just that they're not young, right? They got discovered. They didn't get discovered when they were young, and now they're just selling art on the street, not because of their lack of talent, just because that's how the industry works. You're muted.
That has not happened in 15 years, but there is to be this street near the Seine, in which you had exactly that, you had a lot of artists and old booksellers and whatnot that were selling there, but they cleared that to make it more touristy.
Yeah, I remember that actually. There was a huge thing about it.
Yeah, exactly. It was basically 15 years ago. That's no longer a thing.
What was the reasoning for that? Wasn't it not like there was something else that happened and then they moved it to, I don't remember quite what.
Well, they just used it as an excuse to gentrify that region, because now it's all these high couture shops there. But yeah,
it's too bad.
But you still have it that, for example, in a lot of cities in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially in Naples, you have this corner between the Jesuit college and the old government buildings and the courthouse. You have these rows of streets, and they are literally for different things. You have the booksellers selling the stuff on one, artists on another. One is musicians selling instruments. So that corner where it touches the different old university liberal departments also has those dedicated streets. So I can see something like that, which is represented by this street seller.
Yeah. So yeah, I think maybe this is like a place where there's probably like quite a bit of. I imagine this being like this kind of place for artists, and they're like probably like the, I guess in the internal competition, like the most like talented one, or at least like in some kind of arbitrary, could also not be like, but I think,
I mean, it's entirely arbitrary.
Yeah.
You know how it is in modern galleries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's probably one of the cheapest superior educations that you can get, just on the virtue of being old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not STEM, so it's probably not considerable with you leaving, considering leaving the country to go study to another university is probably way more expensive. So it's probably seen as something achievable.
Yeah, and you can live at home, right?
Yeah, you can live at home, so you save on that. You can work hard during the vacations time, so you can also pay for it still, unlike most people, which have to go in debt. So it's probably something that a lot of people of working class that live locally can. Also, it's great because even if you are paying a lot, you have access to student housing, which on the long term might actually save you a lot of money. So I can see a lot of reasons why a lot of people are actually enrolled in the university.
Yeah, they rent out the student apartments on Airbnb and then live at home.
Yes.
Oh no. I think I want to give this artist a gender neutral name. Maybe like Fran, like a bit androgynous. That's a nice aspect. Actual artist.
Yeah, this probably explains a lot of the street art going around.
Yeah.
A lot of walls, a lot of people with art educations, and with little time or venues to express themselves, and a lot of frustration.
Yeah. That's true. Oh boy. That's a very interesting. It's kind of an interesting aspect, though. I like it.
So we have our academic center, we have our media center, we have an old historical center, we have, which probably going to be one of the places that employs most people. We have healthcare. We have the gateway to the rest of the world. I think we are kind of missing something more. Oh, where is the theater?
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, Bucket needs to add who is the face of the theater. I am thinking, we kind of need something more prosaic, more related to daily life, to where people live, to where people eat. Well, we have cornered education and healthcare.
Mm-hmm. I kind of like there's I want a square like that could be encompass a lot of those things, like both like the street restaurants and then also like people, the young people hanging out drinking at the fountain at the middle of the square and whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see this big square, either near the train station or the central bus stop, and it's pretty much where most of the people's day ends and begins. They arrive or depart through there. So you have a lot of cheap residences near. You have a lot of food places, restaurants, a few bars and clubs. I can see that being, the bleeding artery that actually that feeds the necrotic tissue that is the rest of San Martino.
Yeah. My God, there's a fantasy name generator for everything. Plaza name generator.
This reminds me, I should add to the folder the story games project, because we're gonna have names from everywhere. So where do I have it?
Yeah, I think probably maybe just like called the Grand Square or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
Market Square. Worker Square, even just for fun.
Karl Marx Square.
Yeah.
Oh, or I know. Well, we can go a bit deep and call it Malatesta Piazza. Piazza Malatesta. Actually sounds nice. Thus, being less obvious immediately.
Okay.
Hey, we are basically finishing, I think.
Okay.
So the last thing that we added was kind of, the bloody knuckle that feeds the city. This big plaza with a few cheap residential blocks, a lot of eateries, bars, and whatnot, in which you have trains and buses coming in, bringing people in and out of San Martino. We also further developed the idea of the university, which it's focused on arts. It's probably one of the most economically accessible options to working class.
And this is still the San Marino Creation tab, correct?
Yeah.
Let me refresh it real quick because I'm not seeing anything about the university on here.
Yeah, that is because their face is the Fran, the old artist.
Okay. Okay.
And we need a face for the theater. Someone that represents the theater.
Okay. What if it's an older, like someone in their 60s or 70s, kind of a cultural gatekeeper? Like somebody who says, this is art, that isn't. Gets snooty about maybe the idea of even having comedians or like a rock band or somebody come in and use the theater because they feel it should be reserved for chamber music, orchestras, opera, at live theater. I mean, like even Gilbert and Sullivan is a little bit too low class for them. They want Shakespeare and Faust, that sort of thing. High art theater.
I mean, it's a bit weird to think about Shakespeare as high art, but
well, and in
okay.
Shakespeare's time, Shakespeare was not high art. Shakespeare was art for the common people. It was basically a sitcom or a TV
I
show.
would argue even now it's
But you tack 400 years onto something, and suddenly something that was intended for common people becomes something that's only accessible to the wealthy.
Yeah. The thing that I'm thinking is why not overlap with the university and make it, I don't know, maybe a professor or even a dean or rector, something like that.
So I actually really liked this professor, but I was thinking about it in the context of a linguistics professor I had while I was at university. And he lived with his mother for most of his life. He had a Rolls Royce, and he would drive it to the opera when the opera was in season. But that was very much what he thought of as culture. It was very, yeah, you get what I'm talking about. And he was really nice. But He always wore a suit. He always had a pocket square. He always had like a nice silk tie. He was always very put together. He was the kind of guy who, if he had to use the restroom that was not for teachers or that was not near his office, he always like took a paper towel out of the dispenser to use it to open the door. You know, he was very fastidious in his appearance and kind of germophobic. Probably goes without saying that he was white, right? So I'm thinking like perhaps a more malicious version of him, like somebody who actually has the power to act as a gatekeeper.
A more malicious version of that is what? Jacob Rees-Mogg? Yeah, what I get when you said Rolls Royce, the thing in my mind is, do people even drive in San Martino?
I think no, probably. There's like this car-free zone, which makes it impossible to get around because there's no public transportation except like tourist buses. Like outside the center, it is like imagine like the I mean every Italian like I imagine the Italian city now. It's like the centro historico, whatever, which is like basically the city center, which is the old historical center, but also the center of the actual city now. So the tourist attraction and the place where people work overlaps pretty perfectly. So basically, I think probably like the center is closed for cars, but people still have to get around routes. So it's because they're not getting there, they don't live near, right? So they have to, yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah. Which, you know, could be solved with an underground stations, but